Have you ever walked away from a conversation feeling like you lost, even though you said nothing wrong? Maybe it was a coworker who embarrassed you in front of everyone, a friend who disguised an insult as a joke, a family member who always knows exactly which words will hurt the most. Or maybe it was someone online who made one cruel comment, and somehow it stayed in your mind for days. Here's the strange part. The words themselves aren't what haunt us. It's the response we never gave. Hours later, sometimes even days later, the perfect comeback suddenly appears in our minds. By then, the moment is gone. But what if I told you the most powerful response isn't the cleverest one? What if the people who are almost impossible to manipulate don't rely on quick comebacks at all? For more than 2,000 years, the Stoic philosophers practiced a different kind of strength. Marcus Aurelius ruled the greatest empire on earth, while facing betrayal from people closest to him. Epictetus spent part of his life as a slave, yet no master ever truly controlled his mind. Seneca lived among power, politics, and constant criticism, but taught that the greatest victory is mastering yourself, not defeating someone else. They all discovered one life-changing truth. Every insult comes with an invisible invitation, an invitation to become angry, to become defensive, to surrender control of your emotions. Most people accept that invitation without realizing it. The Stoics never did. In today's video, you'll learn 5 psychological replies inspired by Stoic philosophy that quietly dismantle manipulation, protect your peace, and make toxic people realize they no longer have power over you. And make sure you stay until the 5th reply, because it's the one response that changes the entire game. It doesn't just end the conversation. It often ends their desire to provoke you ever again. Welcome to Wisdom of the Stoics, where ancient philosophy becomes practical wisdom for modern life. Before we begin, I want you to do one simple thing. Think of the most difficult person in your life right now. Someone who constantly criticizes you. Someone who enjoys pushing your buttons. Someone whose words still echo in your mind long after the conversation ends. Keep that person in your thoughts, because by the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to face them. Not with anger, not with fear, but with a level of calm they will never expect. Let's begin with the first reply. Reply number 1 is this: that's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. It sounds almost too simple. No clever comeback, no sharp insult, no attempt to prove yourself. And that's exactly why it works. Every toxic person enters a conversation with the same hidden goal: to pull you into an emotional reaction. They want you to explain yourself, defend yourself, or lose your temper. The moment you do, they've shifted the focus away from their behavior and onto your emotions. Marcus Aurelius understood this better than anyone. As emperor, he was surrounded by critics, jealous rivals, and people who questioned every decision he made. Yet instead of wasting energy trying to change every opinion, he reminded himself that another person's judgment belongs to them, not to you. Think about that for a moment. An opinion isn't a fact. It's simply someone else's interpretation of reality. The problem begins when you start treating their opinion as if it defines your identity. Imagine you're presenting an idea during a meeting. A coworker leans back in their chair and says with a smirk, "I don't think you're smart enough to lead this project." The old version of you immediately feels pressure. You start listing your achievements. You defend your experience. You try to convince someone who never wanted to be convinced. But the Stoic version of you simply smiles, pauses for a second, and replies, "That's your opinion, and you're entitled to it." Then you continue the meeting as if nothing happened. Notice what just happened. You didn't reject their opinion. You didn't accept it either. You simply refused to carry it. Modern psychology calls this emotional detachment. The Stoics called it freedom. Because the moment you stop needing everyone's approval, you become impossible to manipulate. Here's something worth remembering. Not every opinion deserves a response, and not every criticism deserves your energy. Sometimes the strongest statement you can make is refusing to let someone else's thoughts become your emotional burden. Now let's move to the second reply. This one doesn't protect your peace. It quietly reveals the true character of the person standing in front of you. Reply number 2 is one of the most unexpected responses you'll ever use. "Thank you for showing me who you are." Most people assume an insult reveals something about them. The Stoics believed the opposite. An insult usually reveals far more about the person speaking than the person receiving it. Think about someone who constantly criticizes others, someone who enjoys embarrassing people in public, someone who always needs the last word. What does that behavior really say? Does it expose your character or theirs? Seneca taught that people act according to the condition of their own mind. A peaceful person rarely creates chaos. But an insecure person often tries to create insecurity in everyone around them. Imagine you're having dinner with friends. Everyone is laughing until one person suddenly says, "Honestly, you've never been as successful as you think you are." The table goes quiet. All eyes turn toward you. Most people would instantly defend themselves. Some would attack back, but neither response creates respect. Instead, you take a slow breath, look at them calmly, and say, "Thank you for showing me who you are." No anger, no sarcasm, no raised voice, just quiet certainty. That single sentence changes the entire conversation because you're no longer focused on protecting your image. You're observing theirs. Psychologists call this reframing. Instead of seeing yourself as the victim, you become the observer. And observers are much harder to manipulate than victims. From that moment forward, you stop asking, "Why did they say that about me?" And you start asking, "What kind of person chooses to speak like that?" That one question changes everything. Because people always reveal their values through repeated behavior. Believe actions. Believe patterns. Believe character. Not emotional words spoken in a single heated moment. The Stoics understood a truth most people never learn. When someone constantly tries to make you feel small, they're often fighting a battle with themselves. Recognize it, learn from it, then refuse to carry their emotional baggage. Now let's move to the third reply. Ironically, it isn't built on words at all. It's built on something most people are terrified to use: silence. Reply number 3 isn't really a reply. It's a decision. A decision to pause, breathe, and say nothing. At first, silence feels uncomfortable, almost unnatural, because from childhood we've been taught that if someone says something unfair, we must immediately defend ourselves. The Stoics disagreed. Epictetus believed the first emotional impulse is automatic, but the second is a choice. That tiny space between what happens and how you respond is where your real power lives. Picture this. You're in the middle of an argument. The other person keeps interrupting you. Their voice gets louder. Their words become more personal. They're waiting for the exact moment you lose your temper. Most people give them that moment, but not you. Instead, you stop talking. You take one slow breath. You hold steady eye contact, and you allow the silence to do what shouting never could. Something fascinating happens. The room changes. The emotional pressure they try to place on you stays with them. Silence forces people to hear themselves. Many toxic people become uncomfortable when no one reacts. They expected resistance. They prepared for an argument. Instead, they found calm. Modern psychology has a name for this. It's called breaking the emotional cycle. When one person refuses to match the emotional intensity of another, the conflict often loses its fuel. That's why silence isn't weakness. It's emotional leadership. Think about Marcus Aurelius. He commanded armies. He faced betrayal. He ruled an empire filled with people trying to manipulate him. Do you think he reacted to every insult? Of course not. He understood something timeless. Not every battle deserves your attention, and not every person deserves access to your peace. The next time someone tries to provoke you, don't rush to fill the silence. Let them wonder why their words no longer affect you. Because nothing frustrates a manipulator more than realizing they've completely lost control over your emotions. Now we're moving to the fourth reply. And this one surprises almost everyone because it sounds like agreement, but it's actually one of the strongest signs of psychological competence. Reply number 4 is one of the hardest responses to master. You might be right. I'll think about it. At first, those words sound like defeat, almost as if you're admitting the other person has won. But that's exactly what makes them so powerful. A toxic person expects resistance. They expect excuses. They expect you to defend your pride. When you calmly acknowledge that you'll consider their words, you remove the conflict they were hoping to create. Now they have nowhere to go. Imagine a manager says, "Maybe you're not capable of handling this responsibility." Your ego immediately wants to fight back, to prove them wrong, to remind them of everything you've accomplished. But confidence doesn't always need to defend itself. Instead, you simply reply, "You might be right. I'll think about it." Then you return to your work. Notice what happened. You didn't agree. You didn't disagree. You simply demonstrated that your self-worth isn't fragile. Marcus Aurelius often examined his own actions before judging anyone else. He understood that even criticism delivered with bad intentions can sometimes contain a useful lesson. If it's true, you've gained an opportunity to improve. If it's false, time will expose it without you sacrificing your peace. This mindset makes you emotionally untouchable because you're no longer afraid of criticism. You're curious about it, and curiosity is stronger than defensiveness. Most people react because they believe admitting the possibility of being wrong makes them look weak. The Stoics believed the opposite. Only insecure people fear honest self-reflection. Strong people learn from everything, even from people they don't respect. The next time someone criticizes you unfairly, ask yourself one simple question. Is there anything useful hidden inside these words? If the answer is yes, learn from it. If the answer is no, leave it behind. Either way, you win. Now we've reached the fifth and final reply. This is the response toxic people almost never expect, because it quietly destroys the only weapon they ever had against you. Reply number 5 is the one that changes everything. I'm at peace with who I am. Read those words again. Not because they're clever, but because they leave a manipulator with absolutely nothing to fight against. Every toxic person depends on one thing: your need for their approval. The moment they realize you no longer need it, their influence begins to disappear. Imagine someone looks at you and says, "You'll never be successful." Years ago, those words might have haunted you. You would have argued, defended yourself, maybe even worked desperately to prove them wrong. But today, you simply smile. You look them in the eyes, and you say, "I'm at peace with who I am." Then you walk away. No explanation, no anger, no need to win. That silence after your words is where your power lives. Epictetus once taught that if someone can make you angry whenever they choose, they've become your master. Think about that. Every time another person's opinion controls your emotions, you've handed them authority over your inner world. But the Stoics refuse to give anyone that power. Your value isn't created by praise, and it isn't destroyed by criticism. It comes from your character, from your choices, from the way you live when nobody's watching. That's why truly confident people don't spend their lives proving themselves. They spend their lives improving themselves. There is an enormous difference. One depends on the opinions of strangers. The other depends on your own discipline. Ask yourself honestly, how many decisions have you made just to gain someone's approval? How much peace have you sacrificed trying to change the mind of someone who already decided not to understand you? Now imagine how different your life would feel if you no longer needed permission to believe in yourself. That is the freedom Stoicism offers. Not freedom from criticism, but freedom from being controlled by it. And there's one final lesson that ties all 5 replies together, because none of them are really about changing toxic people. They're about changing you. Here's the truth most people never discover. None of these 5 replies are magic words. They're simply the visible results of an invisible mindset. Anyone can memorize a sentence. Very few people can deliver it with genuine calm. And toxic people can always tell the difference. They don't fear your vocabulary. They fear your emotional independence. Think about the strongest person you've ever met. Chances are they weren't the loudest. They didn't argue over every opinion. They didn't chase everyone's approval. They carried themselves with quiet certainty. That is exactly what Marcus Aurelius practiced every single day. In his private journal, he constantly reminded himself that his peace depended on his own character, not on the behavior of others. Because here's something worth remembering. People don't control your life by insulting you. They control your life when they control your reactions. The moment you stop reacting the way they expect, you break the pattern. Imagine someone who has criticized you for years. Every conversation follows the same script. They make a cutting remark. You become defensive. The argument begins. Now imagine changing just one part of that pattern. You stay calm. You pause. You smile. You answer with one of the replies you've learned today. Suddenly, the script they've relied on no longer works. Psychologists call this breaking a behavioral loop. The Stoics simply called it wisdom. When you refuse to play the role someone assigned to you, they lose the ability to predict and manipulate your behavior. This doesn't mean every toxic person will suddenly become kind. Some won't. Some may even become more frustrated because they've lost the emotional control they once had over you. That's okay. Your goal was never to change them. Your goal was to stop giving them free access to your peace. Remember, your peace is valuable. Don't hand it to people who haven't earned your trust. Protect it, strengthen it, and let your calm become louder than their chaos. Because the greatest victory isn't making toxic people regret their words. It's reaching a place where their words no longer have the power to define your day. And before we finish, there's one final Stoic lesson that brings everything together. Before we end, I want to challenge the way you think about toxic people. What if they were never your greatest obstacle? What if your greatest obstacle was the version of yourself that kept reacting
Exactly.
the way they expected? Stoicism teaches something most people spend a lifetime trying to learn. You can't always choose who enters your life, but you can always choose who influences your mind. Every insult, every criticism, every act of disrespect, is an opportunity to practice emotional discipline, not because you enjoy being tested, but because every test strengthens the person you're becoming. Think about how athletes train. They don't become stronger by avoiding resistance. They become stronger because of it. The Stoics viewed difficult people the same way. Marcus Aurelius even reminded himself each morning that he would meet selfish, dishonest, arrogant, and ungrateful people. Not to become cynical, but so he wouldn't be surprised when it happened. Preparation creates calm. Expectation reduces frustration. When you stop expecting everyone to be kind, you're no longer shocked when someone isn't. That doesn't mean you tolerate abuse. It means you stop allowing someone else's behavior to dictate your emotional state. Real confidence isn't walking into every room believing people will respect you. Real confidence is knowing you'll remain yourself even if they don't. So the next time someone tries to provoke you, remember these 5 principles. Don't absorb every opinion. See people's character instead of their insults. Use silence with intention. Accept useful criticism without fear. And never allow another person's words to define your identity. Because your greatest strength isn't having the perfect comeback. It's becoming someone who no longer needs one. And that brings us to the final lesson. The lesson that Marcus Aurelius believed mattered more than winning any argument. Marcus Aurelius once wrote that the quality of your life is shaped by the quality of your thoughts. Think about that. Not your salary, not your status, not the opinions of strangers. Your thoughts. Every time someone insults you, 2 conversations begin. The first happens out loud. The second happens inside your own mind. And the second conversation is the one that determines your future. Do you tell yourself, maybe they're right, I'll never be good enough, I have to prove them wrong? Or do you quietly remind yourself, my character speaks louder than their opinion? That single choice changes everything. The Stoics believed that real strength isn't measured during peaceful moments. It's revealed when life becomes uncomfortable. Anyone can stay calm when everything goes their way. Wisdom appears when everything doesn't. So don't measure your progress by how many arguments you win. Measure it by how many arguments no longer disturb your peace. There will always be people who misunderstand you, people who criticize your decisions, people who judge your success, people who project their own fears onto your future. Let them. Your responsibility isn't managing every opinion. Your responsibility is protecting your character. Every time you choose patience over anger, clarity over confusion, self-control over revenge, you're becoming the kind of person toxic people cannot manipulate. And here's the beautiful part. You don't have to announce that change. People will notice it on their own. The same people who once expected emotional reactions from you will begin receiving something completely different. Calm, confidence, silence. And that's often more powerful than any words you could ever say. Now, there's one final reminder every Stoic should carry into daily life, because this single idea ties together everything you've learned today. If there's one lesson I hope you remember after this video, it's this. Peace is not something other people give you. It's something you stop allowing them to take. For years, many of us have believed that confidence comes from having the perfect words, the perfect comeback, the perfect argument, the perfect victory. But the Stoics discovered something far greater. The strongest person in the room isn't the one who always has the last word. It's the one who no longer needs it. From today forward, you'll meet difficult people. Some will criticize you. Some will underestimate you. Some will try to provoke you just to watch your reaction. Don't see them as enemies. See them as opportunities to practice everything you've learned today. Remember the 5 replies? That's your opinion, and you're entitled to it. Thank you for showing me who you are. Pause. Breathe. Say nothing. You might be right. I'll think about it. And finally, I'm at peace with who I am. These aren't just responses. They're reminders that your character is stronger than someone else's opinion, because no one can insult a person who refuses to hand over their self-worth. No one can manipulate a mind that has learned to remain calm, and no one can control a person who has stopped seeking validation from people who never intended to understand them. So this week, I challenge you to do something different. The next time life tests your patience, choose one of these Stoic replies. Not to impress anyone, not to win an argument, but to prove to yourself that your emotions belong to you. If this lesson helped you, let me know in the comments. Asterisk, asterisk, which of the 5 replies will you use first? Your answer might inspire someone else who's fighting the same battle in silence. And if you're serious about building an unshakable mind, subscribe to asterisk, asterisk, Wisdom of the Stoics. Asterisk, asterisk. And join thousands of people learning how to live with greater discipline, confidence, and inner peace through timeless Stoic wisdom. Until next time, guard your mind, protect your peace, and remember, The greatest revenge is never making toxic people suffer. It's becoming someone they can never control again.